Hi guys, my name is Christine, and today I'm talking about the top 6 daily habits of successful people. So these are the habits I've personally studied that creates a person to be successful in their field that you can replicate, because they're actually things that are very practical, things that you can also do yourself so that you may become more successful in your endeavors too. Okay, so the first of these 6 daily habits of successful people is they do their most important tasks at the time of day that they have the most energy. Okay, so for some people, they're night owls, right? They have more energy at nighttime. Some people have more energy in the morning. Some people have more energy in the afternoon. So basically, if you want to become successful too, and you want to have more success in your life, then it's a good idea to figure out when is the time of day you have the most energy, that you're the most sprightly, and you don't feel as lethargic and you don't feel groggy. Like, what time of day is that for you? Now, you may need to experiment with this. You may need to figure out, work at different times during the day and see how you feel in case you don't know. But essentially, the successful people do their most important tasks when they have the most energy. Okay. So another top daily habit of successful people is they do whatever they need to do, whether they feel like it or not, which is probably the most hardest thing to do, right? Many people procrastinate these days. I still procrastinate a lot of the time as well. It's very difficult to get yourself out of the habit of procrastination. So the idea then is that you have to do what you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. And that's what successful people do, and they do that on the daily. Whether they feel like going to the gym or not, they still go. Whether they don't feel like working on their business, they still do it. Whether they don't feel like calling up that client, they still do it. Right? It's something that they still do. They don't give up. They don't procrastinate. Essentially, they do whatever it takes. They do whatever they need to do, whether they feel like it or not. And that's probably the most challenging of these daily habits. Okay, so to get yourself to do whatever you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. Okay, so another daily habit of successful people is that they exercise, right? They have some form of way to get their blood pumping, and to feel good about themselves and to be healthy, right? So they exercise regularly. They may even exercise every single day. So that's something else to consider as well, especially if you're looking at people who are like athletes and stuff like that. If you want to become an athlete too, obviously they work out, they train every day. If you're more entrepreneurial, then yeah, they still exercise every day. These really top people, these people that are really, because if you look at like interviews of people that have been really successful in their field, they're usually not unhealthy looking. They are usually, typically, quite healthy looking, and you can tell that they're trim, that they take care of themselves, right, and that they exercise. Okay. So another habit that successful people do daily is they read for 30 minutes about their field of expertise. So in order to stay in the loop, in order to stay up to date with their field and the things that they're doing, they may be looking up, reading on the latest technologies if they're like in the technology field, right? But they read for 30 minutes at least in their field every day. This could be through magazines about their field, like business. It could be like business magazines or something like that, or newspapers which have topics which is related to their field, or it could actually be physical books like non-fiction books and stuff like that. And they keep up to date. Basically, they keep their knowledge up to date with the latest current trends, what's going on, right? Or they could just be refreshing themselves on principles that they already know, right? And things that they already have gone through a few times, but it keeps their mind refreshed to go back over it over and over again, right? I don't know who said it, but if you get like 5 books, right, 5 relatively recent books about your field, and you read those books, you'll be already in one of the top percentile of people, especially when it comes to knowledge of that subject. Okay, so that's something to think about too. Okay, so another daily habit of successful people is that they, even though they've got this busy lifestyle, they still make time for their family, their friends, and their most important connections. That's something that they still stay on top of, even though they have these busy lifestyles. They don't neglect their family, right? Especially if you don't just want to be a successful person, but you also want to be a happy person as well, right? It's very important that you make a good balance of that, and you spend time with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, and with obviously other family members that are really important to you, and check in with people every now and again, and also with your friendships too, right? This is something that successful people do, especially successful people that are happy, right? Because, there are many people out there who are successful because they're successful musicians, successful actors, maybe even successful business tycoons, and yet you find out that they have overdosed or they've done something else to harm themselves, and they die, right? Because they haven't looked after themselves, right? That's not a successful person, right? That's, even though they may have the money, they may have the wealth, they may have the fans, but they're very actually poor in mental health, they're poor in physical health, they're poor in their friendships and their support groups, because if they had a strong support group, those kinds of things are very unlikely to happen, right? And if they actually had, strong mental health too, those things would not happen as well, because they would know if they were going downhill, if they didn't feel good, if they felt like they was getting horrible thoughts about themselves, they would check in and, with a therapist and try and get help on that, right? So it's important that you have a good balance. You're successful and you're grinding away to get things done, but also you don't neglect the most important people in your life, and you also don't neglect yourself either, because that can lead to actually becoming very, very deeply unsuccessful, right, in the ways that I've listed. Okay, so the last daily habit that I want to talk about, which successful people do, is they get their thoughts and ideas on paper, right? So they have a journal, or they just write down things that they need to do or things that are on their mind, and they keep note of these things, right? So they always try to get their thoughts down on paper. Sometimes this is what I like to call like a brain dump, which is where, if you feel like your mind is really cluttered and you feel like really unfocused, or you feel really worried about loads of different things, it's a good idea to just write down like literally everything that's on your mind. And then and once you've done that, usually you feel better, and then try to organize it. And because when you write things down on paper, it doesn't look as intense. Like once you have like all these like thoughts, and you may be like, oh yeah, reading it back to myself, actually it's not really that big of a deal. It's something that I can easily sort out, right, and things like that. And also it's a good idea to write down your ideas so you don't lose them. Like, for example, if you are someone who makes TikTok videos or YouTube videos, or you write blog posts, or you're a writer and you're writing novels or something like that, it's a good idea to put your ideas on paper so you don't lose them. Because one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people do is they're thinking, oh yeah, I'll write that down later, or I'll remember that for later, and then later comes and they don't remember it, right? So they try and put down their ideas, their most important ideas, on paper, so they can, and they review this paper as well. Like, that's why it's a good idea to get a journal, because you can flick through it, right, and you can keep it with you, right, as well. So not only do they write down their thoughts, but they kind of also store it, right? And they store it in a place that they can go and look at it, right? Instead of just like loose bits of paper in their like work drawer or something that gets lost, right? They keep a close eye on those ideas, and they go through them often. So those are the top 6 habits that I've personally found on successful people. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you would like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.